YouTube, welcome to the Perfect Gentleman Podcast. I'm Brian. Today we are talking about the 5 W's of being the perfect gentleman. That's who, what, when, where, and why. Let's get into it. Who should try to be a better gentleman in today's day and age? What is my definition of the perfect gentleman? When are the key times that a perfect gentleman should either turn up their standards or maybe possibly look at turning down or turning them all the way off? Where are the most important places that a perfect gentleman shows up? And why do I think it's important that in 2025 we all try to level up our abilities as gentlemen across the board? So give me a couple of minutes of your time, guys, and if you agree, please do me a favor, take a minute, like, share, subscribe. And if you know somebody who this content might benefit, please comment down below, tag them in the comments, and let's see if we can't get this thing moving. So with that being said, give me a couple of minutes in your time. We'll crush these. Let's get into it. All right, so who should be a better gentleman in 2025? Look, like we all know, the world's changing, things are changing, people are changing. So for the sake of this video, I'm just gonna say anyone that is masculine facing. I don't care whether you are a traditional man, whether you're a trans man, whether you are a lesbian stud. I don't care who you are, what you look like, doesn't matter. But if you are trying to show the world that you are a man of this world, then we need to act like men of this world that are adults, that have some decorum and have some common sense given the surroundings that they are putting themselves in. With that being said, what is the perfect gentleman in my eyes? So to me, the definition of a perfect gentleman is somebody who is cognizant of his surroundings and educated in how to handle and operate the situation that he's chosen to put himself in. Or at the very worst, giving an honest effort to better the situation that he's in. Let me give you a couple of examples here. A, you should not try to put yourself in situations or to either speak or look like you are educated in things that you are not. You should treat others in every situation with a heavy grain of salt and a big slice of humility. You never know what somebody else is going through. And more than likely, they're going through more than you know, or more than they'll ever tell you. So with that being said, understand that people are complicated and understand that situations are complicated. And so you need to be acutely aware of what you're doing, who you're surrounding yourself with, and you need to be able to put yourself in the best situations where you can add value to those situations. You never want to be the person who is taking up space in a room and not adding any value. To me, a gentleman is somebody who always strives to make every situation better, and at the very least, you are doing what is right by the given situation that you find yourself in. In my eyes, if you're doing those things to the best of your ability, whatever field of endeavors you choose to put yourself in will probably handle themselves with a positive outcome, or at the very least, if it's not a positive outcome, it's something that you can take yourself and put yourself in a better situation the next time, because as gentlemen, we always try to learn from what doesn't go our way, right? So in my eyes, there are 2 quotes that really go along with this concept very, very well. One is from Jordan Peterson, and one is from a gentleman named Ron Perrier. A lot of people know Jordan Peterson and probably have an opinion on his topics of conversation and his path to fame and path that he's risen through. And you know what, personally, his content helped me a ton when I was first getting sober. 12 Rules of Life, Maps of Meaning. I've read all of his books from start to finish. And to me, Jordan is one of the best spoken, best educated, perfect examples of somebody who is living out what he defines as a perfect gentleman's lifestyle. In my eyes, that's what he is striving for. So I am a fan of Jordan, regardless of whatever anybody else says to him. But he talks about in one of his old videos that went very, very viral that, you know, a man should be capable of becoming a monster. He should have the capability of, if necessary situations come up, if you have to be violent in order to protect the things and the people around you that you love, if a threat comes, you should be able to handle that threat. Now, I'm not one that goes out looking for fights by any means, and I'm not somebody who is going to promote that type of lifestyle. But I think that you should be ready, and I think that you should be capable. And I think that being weak is not something that anybody should strive to do. I think that you should try to be the best version of yourself in all ways. And yes, that means being able to defend yourself. I think that you should be capable of being soft, and I think that you should be capable of being very, very hardened if that is what the situation calls for. But that's one thing that Jordan talks about a lot, and I'm not going to try to butcher up his quote, but we all know the meaning behind it and the message behind it. So as gentlemen, I do think that it's important that we strive to be capable and also understand the softness that life requires of us as gentlemen. And then the secondary quote from Ron Perrier, he says in a long time ago, in an Amway business far, far away, he said a quote from stage and it got recorded on a cassette, and I found it in the early 2000s. The talk, I think, was recorded in the late 70s, but he says, the best use of your life is to so live your life so that the usage of your life will outlive your life. And I think that that is something, that legacy that all men strive for. I think it's something that we all it's why inherently I think that men typically like to have families and like to settle down and have that fatherly role, because I've heard so many people talk about you don't even know what being a man is until you become a father. It's not a privilege I've had yet to enjoy, but one of these days maybe. Outside of just your family, I think that the way that you live your life and the way that you treat people and the way that you go about handling your business is so crucial in how your legacy will be formed. It'll, be what your kids remember about you. It'll be what your coworkers remember about you. And all the success in the world, if you're a bad person, we all know plenty of successful people that are not good people, and they're not people that we celebrate. So with that being said, let's move on to the next topic. All right, let's break for a quick wrist check here, guys. So right now I'm wearing my Oris rectangular complications with a moon face. Let's get a close up on that bad boy right there. Absolutely beautiful watch on a custom strap. Let's get back to the content. All right, so when is it a good time to either turn up the volume on being a gentleman, or when are good times that I think, or necessary times I think, that you need to necessarily drop your standards or possibly get rid of your standards? First of all, there are going to be very few and far between times on very extreme ends of the spectrum of good times and bad times in which these are going to happen. The one time on the good side that I think that it is always a good time to turn up your level of being a gentleman to the point of being obnoxious or being snooty or something like that is if you are going to be self-deprecating. If you want to make fun of yourself for wearing a shirt and tie in your home office, I'm all for it. I'm making gentleman's content from my home office right now, trying to tell somebody else something like this on YouTube. I am going to make fun of myself plenty of time. Wow, that was already really bad. What is decorums? And I feel like everybody should. But also, let's call a spade a spade. There's also going to be times on the back end where a situation doesn't go the way that you want it to go, and you absolutely feel like dropping your standards to that person's level, and whether that is having a fun moment where you get to clap back with a smart-ass comment in public, for fuck's sake, just try to be a good person. Or whether that is, pushing the envelope past the point of just words. There are all sorts of inclinations and times in which humans will want to act out in certain ways, and as gentlemen, we have to try to rise above it. Now, there are a couple of situations. One, if somebody puts their hands on you, that is your right to defend yourself in any way you see fit. I don't have a problem with anybody defending themselves in any way, shape, or form. If somebody's pushing your buttons to the point to where you cannot get them to stop, and they need to be put in their place with a firm tone, then there are certain ways to go about doing that in a way that doesn't make you look like necessarily the bad guy. So just choose your weapons wisely, I would say. If you're going to have to put somebody, having civility shouldn't be this hard. back into a place to where you can handle being around them, or there's always the option to just leave whatever situation you're in. All right, so where does a gentleman go and where does a gentleman not go? I think there are only a couple of places that a gentleman should never go, and those are gonna be rooms in which he is not appreciated, rooms in which he's not wanted, or rooms in which he does not get respect. I think that there are certain levels of decorum that when you are in public, that you shouldn't put yourself in places where that is gonna be the way that you are treated. And it's on you to make sure that you hold that standard. Only you can do that. I am guilty of being a people pleaser in my life, and so I am not going to sit here and say that I have been the best example of that, but in the last couple of years, it's something that I have definitely learned and something that I have taken a lot more seriously. Now, when it comes to where to go, I think that these are obviously going to be places opposite of that. If you're being celebrated someplace and somebody is taking the time to celebrate you, I think it is important of you to give them their just due by at the very least showing up. If somebody's going to take their time out of their day to do something for you, you at the very least need to reciprocate that back at the very least. I think that it is important to go in places where you have peace. It is important to go into places where you feel motivated and challenged. I think it's very important to stay in rooms and in work environments and situations where you are constantly being pushed. So that's the right associations. Make sure that you are around the right people. The 5 closest people to you are going to be who you associate with and who you are going to spend the most amount of time with, and therefore they are going to be the people that you are going to most be like. So if they are successful, if they are building successful families, if they are moving on in their careers, and if they are moving on in their lives, doing better things each year, then that's the trajectory that you're going to be on. But likewise, if they are in the exact same jobs, doing the exact same things, and never trying to grow, never trying to stretch, never trying to try, then that's the situation that you're going to find yourself in. So make sure you're cognizant of where you are and what type of situations you're putting yourself in. Why do I think it's important to be a gentleman in 2025? Why do I think it's important to try to be better as a gentleman every day in 2025? It's something that I'm trying to do myself. So it's part of the reason why I'm talking to the camera and hopefully making this content that people are going to appreciate. But why do I think it's important? One, I think that people are absolutely tired of fake people. I think people are tired of narcissists. I think people are tired of going into public and seeing people who act like they've never been in public before. Public decorum is at an all-time low. I can't tell you how many times I will hold a door for somebody and a simple thank you is too much to ask. Or, I say thank you, or I say you're welcome, or I say please, or I say thank you, and I get absolutely no response. Nobody even thinks to reply. These are from customer service people. These are from people that are either working cash registers. These are people that have to be there, We have to have these interactions. We might as well be pleasant to each other. My personal opinion, my 2 cents. But I think people appreciate authentic civility in public, and I think that is at an all-time low. So let's please try to bring it back. Let's make that cool again. Let's make being good to people in public cool again. Let's make not being full of road rage and crazy driving antics. And God knows I live in St. Louis and we have some of the worst drivers and some of the craziest driving antics in the entire city. In situations where if you're interacting with people that you know how to act and you act accordingly, if you're in a nice restaurant, you act like you're in a nice restaurant. If you are going to a concert, go mosh like crazy. I've been to shows, I've been in mosh pits. They are fun as hell. But with that being said, you don't act like that when you're waiting in line at the gas station. I hope. But if you're actually being a good person when you're out in the world, more people will want to associate with what you're doing or whoever you are, and that just helps everybody. I think it would be a better world if we all just acted better to each other, and then we would all be happier promoting each other, and then everything starts falling into place. It's amazing how that works. But the world, there's enough conspiracy theories about the world ending. Maybe. No? Why? Here's a better question. Why not be a better gentleman in 2025? What do you have to lose? Nothing. You'll have a better conscience about how you go about your day. And the worst case scenario, absolute worst case scenario, is you got better because of it, even if the world's falling apart around us. We can do our part. That's all I'm here to do, is to preach that. So with that being said, guys, that's the end of the video. Hope you guys had a good time. Hope you guys have a great rest of your night. We'll see you in the next one. But obviously we don't want to be, part of being a gentleman is not being somebody who is like, oh my gosh, look at me, I'm this, I'm that, or is trying to, where am I trying to go with this? Nah, I can cut all this.